teacher, a timeline, and a tall tale. Members of the jury, that's what you heard today. You heard about a teacher, Johnny Stewart, who's dedicated his life to his work. You've heard about a timeline that doesn't quite add up. And you've heard a tall tale state hopes you believe. You must remember, the burden is on the state today to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that our client is guilty of the crime he's charged with. That's the highest standard. The highest, beyond a reasonable doubt. But we'll get back to that. First, let's start with the teacher. This man right here, Johnny Stewart, 15 years being a teacher and a soccer coach, has dedicated his life to his students. When they need a ride to school or soccer practice, Coach Stewart does it. When things aren't going well at home and they need someone to talk to, Coach Stewart's there. He did all these things for Michael Unati. When Pat Unati wasn't there to pick him up or take him to soccer practice, Coach Stewart did it. Michael Unati even said Coach Stewart was like a big brother to him. This man has gone above and beyond what we could hope any teacher would do. Now let's go to the timeline. You heard from 4 witnesses today. We'll start with Pat Unati. Miss Unati, she sat there in that stand. What did she say? Well, she said her son was up for expulsion. What else did she say? She said that Michael went to Coach Stewart's house. She also said Michael called her on Thursday, said she was going to get a ride, he was going to get a ride home from somebody. Then we asked her, did you see Michael Thursday? What was her response? No. Did you speak with Michael Thursday? No. Did you call anyone, see where Michael was that Thursday? No. Okay. Friday. Did you see Michael? Miss Unati? No. Did you speak with Michael? No. Did you call anyone about his whereabouts? No. And then the same for Saturday, and the same Sunday. And then at 4 a.m. Monday morning, it's the first time she realizes her child has been allegedly held against his will. And how does she realize it? 4 a.m., Michael comes and apparently beats on the door. Wakes her up. She comes and lets him in. And then, at noon the next day, she takes him to the authorities to tell this tale. Who else did we hear from? We heard from Michael Unati through his deposition. There's a couple of things in Michael Unati's deposition. He says he went to Coach Stewart's house on Friday, not like Thursday, as Miss Unati said. What else does he say? He says he watched the NFC Championship game with Coach Stewart at Coach Stewart's house. Okay. Michael Unati is a student who has been tardy from school and asked for school so much he's up for expulsion from it. And he's even been said to lie about his whereabouts. Well, all right. We'll go to Adrian. We'll go to Principal Adrian Wilkes' testimony. Principal Wilkes stated nothing but great things about Coach Stewart. He stated he watched the NFC and AFC championship game with Coach Stewart in a bar, a packed bar. Said Michael was not present. He also stated that Michael was a troubled kid. Now on to Detective Patterson. Detective Patterson, what did he testify? He said Michael Unati and Pat Unati came to him and he interviewed him. The next day, he goes and interviews Coach Stewart. The following day, he interviews Adrian Wilkes. And he took some photos at Coach Stewart's house. That's what he did. And he said, his words, I did the best investigation I could. Something paraphrased. I did the best investigation. Didn't need to do any more. What didn't he do? He didn't test these so-called special popsicles. He didn't bother to get phone records that proves my client's innocent. He didn't bother to take a picture of the lock on the door where allegedly Coach Stewart locked Michael Unati. Didn't bother. He didn't bother to do his job. This timeline leads us to the tall tale. Like I said earlier, the state had the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Coach Stewart kidnapped Michael Unati. Beyond a reasonable doubt means there is no other reasonable conclusion other than the defendant committed the crime, did it. The only thing that's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt is that that timeline doesn't add up. We've gone through it. Here are 3 things you need to remember from it. 1, Michael Unati says he went to Coach Stewart's house on Friday, excuse me. While Pat Unati said Thursday. First inconsistency. 2, when Michael Unati comes home at 4 a.m., beating on the door, Pat Unati waits 8 hours. Think about that for a moment. 8 hours to take her son to the authorities. And 3, Michael Unati stated he watched the game, the NFC Championship game with Coach Stewart, while Adrian Wilkes, a packed bar, all saw that he watched that with Johnny Stewart. So the tall tale. The state, that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that a coach and a teacher who has done this for 15 years, out of the blue, decided to kidnap one of his students. Let's think about some more reasonable conclusions. By looking at the evidence, the more reasonable conclusion is this. Pat Unati receives an expulsion letter from her and her son's about to get expelled. She then takes Michael, roughly, I think it's 5-6 days later, roughly a week after the expulsion letter sent, takes Michael to Detective Patterson. Patterson buys right into this tall tale they're telling. He does a couple of interviews, takes some photos, does a thorough investigation by his standards, but once again, doesn't test popsicles, doesn't collect phone records to prove my client's innocence, and then he arrests an innocent man. That's the reasonable conclusion from the evidence and from what you've heard in testimony today. For that reason, and the fact that a teacher who has dedicated his life in a timeline that doesn't add up in this tall tale, you must find Coach Stewart not guilty. Thank you.